Hi everyone, it's Zoe here from Living with a Sleeve. I'm back at you with another installment of my last two posts, which have been frequently asked questions that I get from people who have had a sleeve or who are thinking about having a sleeve. So we've already covered a whole bunch of questions in my last couple of lives, and we've talked about, have I stretched my stomach? Is it too late for me? How much protein do I need? Are weight loss stalls normal? How do I combat stress eating? And today I really wanted to touch on a few more really common questions. So I'm going to get to, why do I feel hungry all the time? Why do I still throw up? Can I drink after weight loss surgery, so alcohol? And what vitamins do I need? And do I actually really need to take them? So if you have a question, I see Steph's already posted a question. It's great, Steph. I'll come back to that one. If you have a question, just pop a comment in the comment section and I'll see that as we go through the live. And also, if you want an answer to any of the previously asked questions, we published a blog post answering those questions and giving you some links to other resources already on the site. So if you would like, you can head over there to livingwithasleeve.com/blog, and it's the most recent post there for you. So the first question that I wanted to tackle is, let me remind myself, why am I still hungry all the time? And this is a really common one, I think, because a lot of the time when we're thinking about having a sleeve, we get sold the idea that the sleeve solves all of your appetite issues, you won't feel hungry after you have a sleeve, and that's not necessarily the case for everybody. So it is common to still feel some appetite, but feeling hungry all the time is not necessarily as common. There are a few things that I usually ask my patients when they tell me that they're hungry, and it's more around the timing of that hunger. Is it just after your meals? How long after your meals? Is it at night? Are you hungry first thing in the morning or in the afternoon? And with a few more questions, we can kind of figure out what might be causing that hunger. The first thing I recommend, if you're trying to figure it out for yourself at home, I would really, really encourage you to ask yourself if you're actually physically hungry. Because after the surgery, sometimes it's difficult to tell what that feeling is, whether it's physical hunger or it's just a kind of a new sensation, and perhaps you're even eating when you're not actually physically hungry, but it's more emotional hunger. So next time, before you reach for a snack in between your meals, then really just kind of stop and ask yourself, hang on a sec, am I actually physically hungry? Is my tummy growling? Does my tummy feel empty? And if it's been less than 3 hours since you ate before, there's one of a couple of reasons that might be the case. So if it's been more than 3 hours, you could actually be physically hungry. If it's been less, then what you ate last time maybe wasn't filling enough. So maybe you ate too quickly, or maybe you threw some of it up, or maybe it wasn't a great choice, and therefore it didn't stay with you for long enough. And so going back and kind of reviewing what you ate last time can give you a clue. Maybe you ate your meal too fast, and then we get what we call early satiety, which means that you feel full, but you actually haven't eaten as much as you would eat if you kind of slowed down. So if you're kind of long-term post-op and you're eating, a meal, and you're only managing maybe a quarter or a third of a cup before you're feeling full, then often it is because you're not able to eat the full portion size because you're eating too fast, and you're getting that build-up of food kind of sitting in your esophagus rather than sitting nicely in your stomach. So really focus on how quickly you're eating. So aim for 20 to 30 minutes for your meal, which may seem like an eternity, I know. The other thing that might be causing that hunger is that you're actually thirsty. and not hungry. And so if you're dehydrated or you're craving wet foods like ice cream or watermelon, for example, that's a really big clue that you're not actually hungry, but you're thirsty. And if it hasn't been 3 hours, have a glass of water first, or whatever liquid that you can drink. Maybe put some flavor in it to make it a bit easier, and then see how you feel. Often that will kind of hold that hunger at bay for a bit. And the last thing is maybe you've got head hunger. So maybe it's emotional hunger, maybe it's out of habit, boredom, because of stress, and maybe it's not that physical hunger. So again, checking in. And I really like the Am I Hungry app, and if you haven't seen that, I would encourage you to have a look at that. It basically takes you through a decision-making process and helps you to figure out whether or not you're physically hungry, or if it's eating for some other reason than hunger. Sammy's posted a good question. Eating over that 20 to 30 minutes, can that lead to overeating? Yes, so Sammy, normally we say don't take less than 20 minutes, because either you're eating too fast and you'll make yourself feel uncomfortable, or you won't eat enough. And don't eat over 30 minutes, because that means that you're likely to be eating more than you need, because the first bit of food that you've sort of started with is starting to move back out of the stomach, and then you can fit a bit more in, and that sort of leads to that pattern of grazing if you take too long with your meals. So the sweet spot seems to be 20 to 30 minutes, definitely. And hello, Victoria. Nice to see you all the way from the States. Lovely to have you here live. So my second question, post any other questions if you have them in the comment section, but I'll move on to the second really common question I get, which is, why do I still throw up? And this isn't a great one. It's a really common one. Throwing up is interesting after a sleeve. Sometimes you can actually throw up your stomach contents. Sometimes you'll eat and you'll have what we call foamies, where you kind of throw up like that kind of foamy, slimy, salivary gunk. Or sometimes you will have what's more of like a regurgitation. So the last couple of mouthfuls that you ate, you kind of bend over and it kind of almost falls out, which is a bit gross. But there's a few reasons why people end up sort of not tolerating their food, or bringing their food up out of after they've eaten, after surgery, and we're talking, long-term post-op, so 3 months onwards, for example. And 9 times out of 10, I find that with my clients, it's either that your mouthfuls are too big, they're too fast, or you've had 1 or 2 too many. And especially if you're getting that foamy or that regurgitation type vomiting, that probably means that food is getting stuck in your esophagus, either because the mouthfuls are too big, they're too fast, and so the mouthful that you ate before doesn't have enough time to work its way into your stomach before you put the next one in, or you have a full stomach and then you put 1 or 2 too many. And so when that food ends up in your esophagus goes, nah, this is not meant to happen. And it actually produces extra saliva to try to wash that down. And then when, there's basically a blockage in your little pipe that you have for a stomach now. And so once that sort of starts to fill up with saliva, because your esophagus is doing its job to try to get it down, it'll then come up. And that's usually 9 times out of 10. Mouthfuls too big, too fast, or just 1 or 2 too many. If you're throwing up really regularly, every meal, doesn't seem to matter whether it's liquid or solid, then please go back and see your surgeon, because it could be that there's a mechanical issue. So maybe it's something like a stricture, where some of that scar tissue from the surgery has tightened and it's caused your sleeve to be tighter than it should be. Okay, so some tips to get around it. Sit down, take time for your meals, really pay attention, take small mouthfuls, put your knife and fork down in between mouthfuls. I would say thumbnail-sized mouthfuls is a good guide. Really kind of concentrate on what you're doing. Try not to eat in front of the TV or with other distractions if possible. Check your portion sizes as well. And you can listen for what I call the sigh moment. And that's when you're eating a meal and you pause for a second and you go, and that is your body saying, stop eating, I'm full. But often what we do is we go, and then we pick up our knife and fork and we carry on our merry way, and that's when you're going to end up overeating. So if you can stop at that sigh moment, that will give you, your stomach, that chance to kind of feel okay, and know that you can go back and have a little bit more, or you could have a snack in between your meal if you get hungry. But most people, if they find that they're paying more attention, they don't actually need to go back and have seconds. The other thing that you can think about is, what are your hunger levels during the day? So if 0 was starving, so hungry I could eat my fingers, and 10 was I'm so full after Christmas Day lunch, I want to throw up, you want to try and keep your hunger levels between a 3 and a 7. So you never want to get too hungry, because that's when we then often eat too fast or too much or make a poor choice. But you also never want to kind of eat past satisfied. You don't want to get to full. You want to be 1 or 2 mouthfuls before full. And just don't drink and eat at the same time, because there's not enough room. Okay, so hopefully that helps with the vomiting thing. Denise, that sounds like it might have helped you. And Victoria, the sigh moment, it does really work. But you're right, only if you're eating slow enough, because otherwise we don't notice, and you're not giving your stomach enough time to go back to your brain and tell you to stop. Okay, so we've got 2 more questions to answer today. The next question I want to talk about is, can I drink alcohol after a sleeve? Now, I've had many a patient come in and tell me that they went to the theatre and they had 1 daiquiri and they were an absolute disgrace. But alcohol doesn't always affect people who've had a sleeve like that. And it's not a terrible thing if you have a little bit of alcohol on the odd occasion, but post-op we really do want to be avoiding having too much alcohol. And so let's start with the reasons why not. The first reason is that alcohol gives us lots of calories, but nothing else, really. We don't get any protein, we don't get any vitamins or minerals. Red wine has like a few antioxidants in it, but that's really about it. So we're talking about empty calories here, which will contribute to your risk of either slowing your weight loss or regaining weight. We often also, when we drink calories, we don't compensate by eating less at our next meal. And that research has shown for people with or without surgery. It's just that it doesn't seem to register with our brain or our appetite that we've had those calories, as well as when we actually eat something. And liquid calories don't fill us up for very long, like eating a meal would. The other thing is that you need to be careful after a sleeve. The absorption of alcohol changes. So, like I said with my client, 1 alcohol can really hit you hard, and especially because if you're kind of sort of soonish after surgery, so within the first maybe 3 to 6 months, you've probably had a chunk of time where you've been off alcohol altogether, and so your tolerance is lower, your weight is lower, and then the absorption is faster, and so it's sort of a triple whammy, and you get hit by it like a ton of bricks. So you just need to be really careful. And the other thing that's not great is there are some reports and some studies of people replacing food as a coping mechanism with alcohol after the sleeve, because it's easier to get in than food. So if you know that before you had surgery, eating was a comfort or a coping mechanism for you, then it's probably better to stay away from alcohol if you can. We don't want that to become your crutch, like your emotional crutch. And if you need help with that, please see a counsellor or a psychologist to help you to adjust and find some other healthier coping mechanisms. The other thing I would suggest around alcohol is just be careful with the fizziness, especially soon after surgery. And try not to get in the habit just because. But if you're at a special occasion, you're out to dinner, it's, once or twice a month, for example, then go ahead, have a glass or two. That's not going to be the end of the world. So the odd drink is absolutely fine, but just be careful with how you do it. Okay, last question for today, and I'll stay on if there are any other questions, and hopefully, Steph, this helps with your, I'll answer your question about multivitamins when I'm talking about this one. So we do need supplements after surgery. So many people say to me, oh, well, my bloods are fine, so I don't actually need to be taking them. It's all good. I'm healthy. But the ASMBS guidelines recommend that every weight loss surgery patient is supplemented. And there's a few reasons for that. One is the volume of food that you can eat. Certain nutrients the volume makes it very, very difficult to just meet the general recommendations for good health. And the other thing is the absorption of certain nutrients changes over time after the surgery as well. So we need to be really careful, particularly if you're older. So we're talking about nutrients, for example, like calcium and vitamin D to protect your bone health. Or if you're female and with menstruation, then iron becomes a problem. Or if you're a vegetarian, then things like iron and B12 and become a problem as well. And we just need to be really careful. So what the recommendations are is that you would have a multivitamin, and there are in Australia, there's a new multi that is a 1-a-day multi designed for weight loss surgery patients. That one's called Fit for Me. Otherwise, 2 bariatric multivitamins such as the BN multis. You also need to have calcium every day, and that usually needs to be split over the day. But talk to your dietitian about that, because it really does depend on how much calcium you're eating in your diet as well. Vitamin D. So usually you can get a supplement that is vitamin D and calcium together. Iron is really important. And most multivitamins won't have enough iron in them, and so you will need an iron separately. And fiber, that's the other one. So fiber to keep us regular. And the reason for fiber, because most people will say to me, but I am regular. Women need 25 grams of fiber and men need 30 grams of fiber a day just for good gut health, cancer prevention. And if we don't have enough, then we can put ourselves at risk. And so adding a fiber supplement in, just maybe into your meal at breakfast time, is a really easy way to get a little extra fiber. And Victoria, perfect, good comment. Calcium citrate, yes. So check your calcium supplement that it is calcium citrate and not calcium carbonate, because calcium citrate is much better absorbed. So I usually tell my clients to take a multivitamin and a B12 together in the morning, calcium and vitamin D, morning tea and afternoon tea, and then at night time, if they're not taking a 1-a-day multi, to take multivitamin plus iron, and then maybe another calcium before bed if they need it. And I know this seems like a lot, but it is just really, really important to prevent any nutrient deficiencies, because nutrient deficiencies in people who have had a sleeve are really, really common, particularly for vitamin D and iron, and even things like thiamine. So we do need to keep an eye on it. Also have your bloods done all the time, not all the time, but regularly. So we usually do our bloods before the surgery, post-op, so at 1 month post-op, 6 months post-op, and then 12 months, and then every 12 months after that. So if you're long-term post-op, you want to be checking once a year just to make sure that you're on the right track. If you're having trouble, so Steph asked about what happens if you throw up your multivitamin. A few things, Steph. Have it with food, or just after food. Leave a little bit of room so that you've got enough for a mouthful of liquid just to have some food in your stomach, or after a snack. Or take it at night time before you go to bed, and keep trying different multivitamins, because they all do vary a little bit, but it is really common to get a bit nauseous after after having a multi. So you're not alone, but keep persisting. And fibre, Victoria, we normally just recommend something like Benifibre, Metamucil, and I'm not sure what you have in the States, but Metamucil gets really gluggy and quite difficult to swallow, whereas Benifibre is clear and tasteless, and it's a bit easier to take. It dissolves and kind of disappears a bit more easily than others. So I just have a bit of an experiment. It's often a texture thing. People will also use stuff such as psyllium husks to add into, for example, their porridge in the morning, and that's okay too, as long as you've got some sort of fibre going in. Okay, so I hope that's been helpful, and I will publish this what's been on today as another blog post coming up in the next few weeks. But like I said at the beginning, if you want to check out the other questions that I answered over the last 2 Facebook Lives, we've looked at, did I stretch my stomach? Is it too late for me? How much protein do I need? Are weight loss stalls normal? And how do I combat stress eating? So if any of those things are things that you have wondered about, then you can head to livingwithasleeve.com/blog, and it's the most recent blog on there. So I've titled it something along the lines of commonly asked weight loss surgery questions. I can't remember the exact title off the top of my head. So I hope that's helpful. It's been nice to see you. Nice to have so many comments today. So thanks all for watching. Victoria, have a lovely day in the garden, and I will see you soon. Cheers, guys. Bye.